Are you sure it's okay to accept this? I asked the woman in front of me. The woman responded with a charming smile, nodding happily. Well, of course. She had just submitted a birth report. Surely, she must have gone through a challenging time during childbirth. Yet the young woman, with determination as a mother, seemed to be savoring the joy of adding a new member to her family. I received the birth report because I am a government worker here. I'll thoroughly check the document for any mistakes. Especially, I'll carefully verify the father's information. But she remained unfazed, patiently awaiting my processing. Occasionally, she engaged in conversation with the man standing next to her about gifts and introductions. As for the man engaged in conversation, he doesn't even respond properly. No, maybe he can't. The man's face turns pale, trembling, avoiding my gaze as if trying to escape. He can't even offer a decent response. Well, that's to be expected. Because this pitiful, trembling man is my husband, after all. I'm Zoe. I've been working at the city hall for 10 years, a housewife. We didn't have children, but my husband Kai, who worked for a trading company, and I had a modest wedding. We thought we would continue living quietly as a couple. I began to notice something odd about my husband Kai after he passed a promotion exam. As he achieved a significant promotion at a relatively young age, he worked diligently at home, studying, and I supported him wholeheartedly while managing my own job. Thanks to our efforts, when the results came in, I was genuinely happy from the bottom of my heart. Becoming one of the top performers among his colleges, expectations for a promising future surrounded me. His boss even taking him to high-end clubs every week, says it's to introduce him to the clients. For my husband, it was probably the period when he received the most attention and praise in his life. Perhaps he got used to those high-end luxury life. When he returned from luxurious and glamorous places, the meals I prepared seemed very simple and cheap to him. Gradually, he started making condescending remarks towards me. Another cheap vegetable stir-fry? I will get pay raise, so you can afford something a bit more luxurious. He started to say that at first, but his language gradually became harsh, turning into something directed at me. Get some high-quality domestic meat. Remember the good meat we had on the celebratory day? But on regular days, it's scary to buy expensive meat and mess up the cooking. It's not like you're a bad cook, haha. It just feels like you're indirectly saying my salary are low, and I don't like it. Of course, I don't feel that way. Money is needed for other aspects, not just food expenses. I believe that when the salary increases, it's crucial to tighten the budget and maintain our usual lifestyle. One day, my husband finally said, I can't tell people that I eat something like this, and stopped touching my cooking. Even though he used to say, thanks to Zoe, and I'm lucky to have a wonderful wife when he got promoted. It's incredible how much my husband changed. Zoe, don't you have any motivation for housework? Huh? What do you mean by that? I never said that. I'm doing it normally. You haven't watered the plants outside, right? Weeds are growing, too. And I asked you to wash the car. When are you going to finally do that? You say you're busy, but is working at the city hall really that busy that you can't do housework? Haha. I made sure not to let dirty dishes or laundry pile up, but I didn't have enough time for the potted plants around the entrance. Cutting grasses was difficult on weekdays, and washing the car took even more time. Besides, I don't even drive the car, so it's strange for him to ask me to do it. It was not even a fight, it was just my husband's condescending words towards me, and it kept increasing day by day. My husband started connecting the lack of household chores with my job at the city hall, even ridiculing it. I remembered the days of desperately taking the public servant exam, and I somehow managed to soothe my frustration.
If you're busy, I'll eat out for a while. You don't have to do the housework, Zoe. Next week is our wedding anniversary. Do you remember the restaurant we reserve every year?
I have it marked on the calendar.
The restaurant we always go to on our anniversary,
a slightly pricey and popular place we've been using since before we got married. If he were how he used to be,
he would have made the reservation 6 months ago.
Could it be that he's changed that too?
When I asked cautiously,
my husband suddenly brightened his expression.
However, the words that followed were so shocking that I felt like my heart was shattering. Oh, that's fine. I've got the reservation. But on that day, I couldn't change the schedule for work with our business partners. Also, I've been told to set up a meeting or something soon, so I recommended this place as it's a good fit. Huh? What do you mean by you recommended?
I mean, I reserved it for our anniversary, but I will use it for a dinner event. Don't you get it? We do not really have to celebrate on the day exactly.
And since I made the reservation, it's fine, right?
My husband said it like no big deal.
I felt a sting in my nose, but
I did not want to show tears. I somehow managed to hold back.
That was not my point. I was stunned by my husband's behavior. I didn't know what to say and
fell silent. He looked at me with annoyance.
If you didn't have that city hall job
and took care of the house properly, I would come home and do my best. But if you can't handle the housework, there's no point in having a job, right? Why don't you just quit? Recently, I had been asked to help in a different department, which made me come home late. I wasn't sure if he wanted me to quit my job because of the insufficient housework or if he just wanted to assert dominance over me. Seemed like he is just wanting to lash out
without reason. Even though my income is stable,
I have responsibilities to the people in the city I serve, so being busy is unavoidable. Besides, I take pride in doing
important work.
Even though my husband said terrible things,
I had no intention of quitting.
Several weeks later,
I was working as usual, but around the holidays and auspicious days,
the city hall reception gets extremely busy. Even though it wasn't my department,
I made sure there was no chaos by approaching citizens and assisting them, conveying their needs to
the responsible staff. Just then, a couple approached,
and the woman handed me a form with a smile. Our child was born, and we came to submit the birth registration.
It wasn't my department,
so I couldn't handle it.
I was about to tell them I couldn't help and direct them to the appropriate staff,
but then I noticed the man next to her. I was so shocked I felt like I couldn't breathe.
It was Kai. My supposed husband Kai and I made eye contact, and after a moment of surprise, he looked away awkwardly.
Could you please check if everything is correct?
The woman seemed not noticed to the tension, and handed me the form, waiting for my assistance. In the husband section of the birth registration,
Kai's name was written. Congratulations. Let me confirm with the staff. Please wait a moment.
I guided them calmly.
Returning to the counter, I checked with the staff,
but it seemed they were still busy. Moreover, they were quite busy. They couldn't handle the paperwork, so they needed me to ensure the required information was correctly filled out. I desperately organized my confused thoughts.
Maybe I should have confronted Kai earlier,
but perhaps she recognized me as his wife, or maybe it was just a coincidence that they approached me.
Today, I just happened to assist them.
It was a random encounter with the two.
Thank you for waiting. I'll check for any discrepancies. Yes, please.
I pretended like nothing happened, and returned to them as just a staff member.
I guided them to a seat and examined their documents.
Suddenly, I realized the day of the child's birth
was our wedding anniversary, and a sharp pain stabbed my chest.
Inside the counter, I dug my nails into my wrist,
trying to hold back my emotions. The other woman seemed to be named Ruby.
Age of 24, she was decades younger than my husband. She had the appearance of a calm young lady.
Despite light makeup, she didn't look like she had just given birth.
Moreover, having an affair with a married man and
creating a child,
she didn't seem like someone who could face the wife directly. Her lack of reaction
might be because she didn't know about my existence. I apologize for any inconvenience. It might take some time. It's okay. My husband took the day off, and my parents are taking care of the baby with their car.
She answered with a smile. Perhaps she couldn't help but find the baby cute, talking about how small baby is and how healthy and adorable they were. Her husband beside her, naturally, couldn't say anything. He looked awkwardly elsewhere, unsure of what to say. He was confused why I was so calm. He gave me many reasons and excuses not to come back home or stay in home. I suspected there might be an affair, but I never imagined it would lead to having a child. So, I took a deep breath to avoid showing any signs of realization.
If it's okay with you, please call your parents. The baby will feel more secure when the mother is nearby. Thank you. I was anxious too, so I'll do that. Following my suggestion,
she began making a call. Her husband's face suddenly became anxious, but I pretended to check the details of the report and briefly stepped behind the counter. After preparing the necessary documents, I returned
and handed over 2 forms.
They were stunned when they looked into the forms. Especially Ruby was clearly shocked. In the report, your child is marked as a legitimate child, but it should be correctly marked as non-legitimate child. This refers to a child born outside of marriage. A legitimate child implies a child born to a married couple. She stared at the spread-out form, and her face turned blue as she began to tremble. Or, you can submit a marriage registration and become a married couple. Then you can register your child as a legitimate child.
But we have a marriage certificate. We have one. We're married. No, that's not true.
On the birth report submitted by the couple, I brought a blank marriage certificate and a divorce form. I pointed to the empty space for the husband's name on the divorce form, where my name was filled in.
Could you fill this out? Kai, to establish a new marital relationship, you need to get divorced from me first, right?
By now, they must have understood. Ruby glared at me and quickly turned her intimidating expression to the man next to her. I also looked at Kai, who had turned pale.
Submitting a birth registration for the child with the lover, at the window where your wife works. What kind of nerve are you really on?
There was a moment of silence as Kai struggled to respond to my intense questioning. Ruby abruptly stood up with a loud noise as the chair toppled over, interrupting the atmosphere. She let out a shrill scream and lunged at Kai.
You lied to me. You said you were single, right? And you said let's get married because we're having a baby. Kai.
Ruby, of course, had no idea that he was already married. However, she had quickly sensed Kai's flirtatious nature and, to keep him tethered, decided to have a child with him. Unaware that Kai was already married, Ruby had no idea of the truth. Despite having a child and deciding to get married, Kai, who had recently been promoted, was busy. Furthermore, Kai had informed colleagues and business associates that we were undergoing fertility treatments. Yet, he had no intention of divorcing me, as it would jeopardize his reputation. Therefore, he avoided submitting the marriage registration for various reasons, such as avoiding inauspicious days or prioritizing other events. As the weekends were deemed inauspicious, the next one was occupied by Kai's work, and the following by Ruby's father's birthday celebration. Amid these excuses, Ruby's morning sickness worsened, leading to her hospitalization. With repeated hospitalizations, the submission of the marriage registration became an afterthought. Consequently, Ruby had fully believed Kai's claim that he had already submitted the marriage registration. Considering the practical aspects of marriage, such as changing names on licenses and bank accounts, requires considerable effort. However, consecutive health issues and the stress of her first childbirth left her fatigued and unable to think that far ahead. Now, with her face turning red, Ruby erupted in anger, questioning,
"Wait a minute. What about the money I entrusted for the wedding funds? Did he use it with this person? Ha! Kai, are you even borrowing money?"
Ruby's sharp questioning surprised me, and I anxiously looked at Kai.
"Don't just stand there in silence, explain yourself. We have a child, you know? What's the deal? You always blabber about everything except what matters. What about the money? Did you loan from her? What are you using it for?"
I joined in, but Kai remained silent, choosing not to offer a single word in response. It seemed there was a substantial amount owed to Ruby, and, of course, there was no extra money in our household budget, nor did he appear to have a lavish lifestyle beyond his salary. Despite the office staff trying to stop her, Ruby was shaking Kai, demanding an explanation and repayment. I refrained from stopping her since I was in this. Despite carrying around the divorce papers that is already filled, my feelings had already distanced from Kai.
"Fine. You want a divorce, right? Then let's get divorced right here, right now. I don't need you. Are you satisfied?"
Kai, now enraged and with a flushed face, hastily began filling out the divorce papers.
"You too, Ruby, just want me to repay the money, right? Just because you're the daughter of an executive, you approached me as I was climbing the corporate ladder."
His anger turned towards Ruby, who had started sobbing uncontrollably. Despite having given birth to their child, the things Kai was saying were utterly heartless. I wondered if it was time to intervene, and at that moment, Kai audibly gasped. His gaze fixated on something behind Ruby. I turned in that direction, only to find a middle-aged couple with disapproving expressions, standing at the entrance of the municipal office. The woman, holding the baby, remained stationary while the well-dressed man, presumably the father, approached us purposefully. Ruby clung to the approaching man, presumably her father, in tears. This was the elderly couple I had guided earlier when I suggested, why not invite them?
"Is what I just heard true?"
The man's stern voice demanded answers from Kai, who visibly paled. Later, I learned that Kai and Ruby had met during a business dinner with a client. She assisted her father, a senior executive, and worked in a role as a secretary. She was just graduated from university, and Kai found her attractive as she was pure.
"I'm asking if it's true that you deceived and had a child with daughter of your business client. Were you already married to someone else? I didn't invite you to this dinner to put Ruby through this kind of ordeal."
Under a furious outburst that silenced everyone, Kai flipped his chair and crawled on the floor.
"Where did you come up with the funds for the wedding ceremony that I covered?"
Kai, abandoning his defensive stance, tearfully dropped to his knees in a deep bow. As for the whereabouts of the vanished wedding funds, unbelievably, they were used as compensation to the ex-husband of another woman with whom he had an affair. He had an affair with a married woman, but it quickly came to light, leading to her divorce. The husband demanded compensation, and Kai used the wedding funds to settle that payment. He liked Ruby, who was young, and who listens him well, so he thought that if he made a kid with her, he would get a lot of money from her family, and it will fix the problem. With compensation to the ex-mistress settled and a divorce from me somehow resolved, all that remained for him were a wealthy in-law family, and an adorable wife and child. However, such selfish and cruel intentions were not going to work.
I'll consult with a lawyer about you for marriage fraud.
I'll file a lawsuit. Of course, I'll report it to the company too. Deceiving my daughter. Be prepared.
What?
Ruby's father declared legal action and demanded consequences for the company. Despite Kai's tearful apologies, he left with his daughter and child. Attempting to chase after them, he was restrained by security guards who had arrived due to the commotion, and the police were called. I was left with a signed divorce document. Subsequently, news quickly reached my husband's workplace, and disciplinary measures were taken. Due to his blatantly dishonest and problematic behavior. Despite the passage of time since the promotion exam, the results were revoked, resulting in demotion. The negative reputation jeopardized relationships with several other business partners, causing instability in the company. Kai, now a liability, was swiftly terminated, leaving him unemployed. The divorce was successfully finalized, freeing me from Kai. Since the house was in his name, to avoid overlap in living spaces, I moved to a different apartment. While causing concern for my family, once the extent of Kai's cruelty became known, they sympathized and supported me earnestly. Having divorced me and facing lawsuits for adultery, compensation to Ruby, and child support, Kai quickly found himself in financial distress. Additionally, he was hit with a fraud lawsuit and a claim for damages from the company. He needed to resolve on his own, but he audaciously attempted to reconcile with me and even stormed into the municipal office. I was summoned while causing a scene at the window, perhaps because I was the most likely to comply with his wishes. However, unlike when we were married, we were now officially divorced.
We are complete strangers now.
Most of my colleagues are aware of the situation. While it was embarrassing, thankfully, after I made it clear, I was never summoned even though Kai continued to inquire. I had several discussions with Ruby as well. Despite the fact that hiding his marital status was the worst part, she apologized for causing trouble and offered compensation. The newborn baby is reportedly growing up healthy with the support of both grandparents. I declined the money, stating that I didn't want to disturb the return to peace. I believed it would be much better used for the child than being paid to me. Having said that, I parted ways with Ruby. Kai's job prospects didn't improve. Despite looking down on municipal office work, he thought applying for welfare would be quickly approved, not realizing there would be a rigorous examination, especially regarding payments. As soon as the authorities contacted his parents for verification, all his hidden misdeeds came to light. As his parents, strict but proper parents, Kai was forcibly sent back to his family home and made to take up a demanding job. Due to the commotion caused by Kai's retaliatory actions, received a transfer to a different branch in the next assignment. Being geographically distant, the new colleagues were unaware of the commotion. It seemed like I could work quietly, and I was warmly supported by those around me. If Kai were still around, he would have mocked and belittled me for being demoted. However, my diligent work was appreciated, and I received better treatment than before. Although the new life was challenging, I also obtained a fulfilling job. With the problems resolved, a peaceful life finally began.